My name is Stephanie. I work for Climbing the Seven Summits. We're here to talk about gear today and gearing you up for whether it's your first expedition, wherever you are in your climbing journey. We want to help you answer your questions about the gear. We're going to do some introductions and talk about our agenda in just a moment. And then really quickly, we are going to ask you about what questions you have. A lot of people have already asked some great questions as they registered, and so we'll be answering those. But we do really want to hear from you. So with no further ado, let's jump into introductions and our agenda today. Now, our agenda looks a little different today. Usually it's filled with text and bullet points and things like that. I wanted to be a little more visual today. And I also set up our webinar just like we set up our gear lists. So we set up our gear list organized by lower body, upper body, climbing gear, things like that. So today, you're going to see just that. We have our head, talk about all that. We'll talk about our upper body. We'll talk about our lower body. Talk about our packs and duffles. Duffles are just as important as packs. Climbing gear, that's pointing to the harness he's wearing right there. And then we're going to finish it out with personal and luxury items at the end. Now, let's go ahead and jump into some introductions. I want to start off with Josh, who is joining us today. Josh is one of our wonderful guides. He's an Everest guide, and he started working with Climbing the Seven Summits. Actually, he started working with Mike Hamill in 2011 and has deep ties in the Pacific Northwest. Josh, can you give us a little introduction? Tell us where you've been, where you love to climb. I'll leave it to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Like Stephanie said, my name is Josh McDowell. I've been guiding since 2010. I started guiding on Mount Rainier. And as Stephanie mentioned, I started working with Mike in 2011 and have been with Climbing the Seven Summits since 2017. I just got back from an Everest base camp trek along with Dani, who's also in the webinar here. And I've been fortunate enough to summit Everest 3 times and a handful of trips to South America, Antarctica, Denali. Used to work up in the Wrangell St. Elias Range up in southeast Alaska quite a bit. And I still work on Mount Rainier during the summer, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Josh, on behalf of all of us and Climbing the Seven Summits, thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you for just being such a wonderful presence on so many of our expeditions. Your expertise is so valuable as a guide and right here as well. All right, now we have Dani. Some of you that are in this webinar have probably chit-chatted with Dani. She is the woman with lots of answers to your questions, and she has worked in operations and on the back end of things for, what did I hear, 10 years, Dani?
Yeah.
I'm going to let you run with that.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. As Stephanie said, my name's Dani Kluberton. I'm the program manager here at Climbing the Seven Summits. I started working specifically in the guiding industry back in 2016, specifically in operations, logistics, and expedition gear. I've worked on Aconcagua, down in Antarctica, and up on Denali. I'm a climber myself. I've climbed all over the Cascades up in Washington. And now I personally enjoy rock climbing here in Wyoming where I live and also around the world. My love of gear started back in college when I ran our college rec center's gear rental center. I loved helping people get gear for fun things they were going to do, clean gear. I love all things gear and nerding out about it. So can't wait to do that with you all today.
Awesome. I love it. So folks, we're going to be doing some chit-chatting and talking about gear. And then we're also going to be doing a little bit of show and telling gear as well. So we'll actually have a few products here just to show you what we're looking for, what you might look for, and just kind of demystify what it looks like. I have a quick question, Josh and Dani. You're not ready for this question, but I'm curious. Between the two of you, how many gear checks do you think you've done?
What do you got, Dani?
At least 100, if not more.
I know for a fact I've done over 200 Mount Rainier climbs, so probably close to 300.
Okay, so we're looking at, between the two of them, they have about 400 plus gear checks under their belt. So they've seen gear of all different shapes, sizes, quality, wear and tear, had all the silly questions, all the fun questions, the whole gamut. So folks, as we move forward and as we ask this first question, there's no bad question here. We are here to answer your questions. They've probably heard that question before, and we really want to encourage you to ask your questions. I think we're going to jump into some principles to get folks set up. So we're setting the stage right now on kit building principles. and want to make sure that we all have a couple of core things in the back of our minds as we move through all these various gear pieces. So Dani actually really helped me come up with this list right here. Josh was like, this is awesome. This is a great way to set people down the right direction. So Dani, I'm going to turn this over to you so you can jump in and give us these guiding principles so we all kind of start in the same playing field.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, so when you start to think about building your kit or expanding on it, probably one of the first things you want to think about is how much your gear weighs. No matter where we're going on these expeditions, either we're carrying that gear or another human is carrying our gear. So we want to try to make our gear as light as we possibly can. We like to say ounces make pounds. Wherever you can save an ounce here or there, all of that adds up over your kit. That can weigh, 50, 60, 70 pounds. So if you can buy the lighter harness, if you can get the lighter helmet, all of those little increments add up over time. Next, CTSS, myself, Josh, Stephanie, we all like and recommend different kinds of gear. You can hear from one of your buddies that they really like this new Rab jacket that they came out with, or so-and-so loves this black diamond harness. That's awesome, and those are great recommendations. But ultimately, if what we're recommending on our gear list or what you hear your guides say doesn't work well for you, maybe it doesn't fit, maybe it's just not what you're looking for, then don't buy it. Sometimes we see climbers who get everything on the gear list and maybe it just doesn't fit them right. Well, then that's not the right gear for them. So make sure you're purchasing gear that fits you well and fits the mountain, the trek that you're going on. After that, we kind of want to start thinking about our health and safety when we're making gear purchases. Purchasing things like a sun hoodie that's going to protect your head, your neck, your arms, your body from the sun while we're out in the wilderness all day is going to be a really great purchase. You're also going to save a lot of money on sunscreen when that sun hoodie's covering the majority of your body. Other things that Josh will kind of get into later is the use of buffs on your trips to help protect your airway, get moist air back in, and other things like that. So always consider your health and safety when making gear purchases. Not purchasing a really old harness that's been around for 20 years, and we'll get more into that later. Kind of the next principle, as you start to build your kit for the first time, maybe you're coming on Mount Baker with us this summer and you're thinking about going to Aconcagua later. Maybe you're starting on Baker and you're thinking about all 7 summits and ending up with Josh on Everest one day. You really want to start thinking ahead and strategically planning and building your kit for future expeditions. Maybe that means you want to buy some triple boots right out the bat and start using them and getting a feel for them and fitting your crampons to them. Maybe it means you pick a specific down jacket or a different ice axe or harness. And we're going to jump into all of these little details here as we kind of work through from head to toe, but just keeping in mind, where you're going. So you don't buy one puffy jacket and then, I need to buy the next size up or the bigger one as I head to Aconcagua or Vincent or Denali. So thinking about that, when you sign up for our climbs, we've got a gear list that's specific for that climb that we send out to you. And it's got everything you need on there, from bringing a swimsuit so you can swim at the pool in Mendoza, to your summit parka, your 8,000 meter boots, and maybe just a light down jacket on Baker. So we've got those gear lists. We're here to support you guys. And yeah, those are our kit building principles.
Awesome. So I'm sending along the Mountaineering Gear Guide on YouTube. So it's a whole bunch of small short videos. It's Mike Hamill and then one of our senior guides, Robert, and they go through, they kind of do it the same way we have this set up. Upper body, boots, ice axe videos. Some of the stuff Mike shares is a little bit more skewed towards Everest, but it's still exceptionally helpful for any mountain that you're climbing. And it talks more about our principles. You'll see a lot of the same verbiage and the same ideas resonate from this presentation to that Mountaineering Gear Guide. Ideally, they work as a complementary pair. So I wanted to share that, but I think we're ready to jump into our first overarching gear conversation. We're going to be talking about the head right here. We're going to get to the upper body and layers and things like that in just a second, but we wanted to call out the head specifically because there's so many specialized items that you are actually wearing on your head while you're out there. So Josh is going to be kicking things off here.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I like to think about when I'm climbing is something providing me comfort, or is it potentially going to save my life? In addition to that, we need to protect our vital organs. So our brain, our heart, our lungs. Well, the best way to protect our brain and our head is with a quality rock climbing helmet or mountaineering helmet. We don't want this to be a bicycle helmet with thin styrofoam and a poorly covering section of plastic over the top. It needs to be a manufactured rock climbing or mountaineering helmet. Some of them are more styrofoam and designed for a single impact, and some of them are designed for multiple repeated impacts. Hopefully in the mountains, you're not taking multiple blows to the head. But if you're looking more at rock climbing, you want to look more for a rock climbing helmet. If you're looking more toward climbing Everest, where the likelihood of impact to the head is pretty minimal, then a single strike type helmet would be a better option. And I think Dani has an example of a quality rock climbing helmet.
Yep, we've got the Black Diamond, the Vapor helmet here. Nice lime green color. I'm sure Josh will talk about this, but it's got these clips right here that you can slip your headlamp under for when you're climbing in the dark there. Keep it on your helmet.
And if you notice that helmet that Dani just showed, it has quite a bit of airflow. It's got all those sections cut out. The reason being is the likelihood of getting hit in the back of the head is pretty small. Whereas if you look at the top of the helmet, it has a nice section that is completely covered with hard plastic. And then, like she mentioned, you need to be able to put a headlamp on it. So there's usually 4 clips that circumference the helmet, and then the strap from your headlamp would connect underneath that. So it's a great example. Old rock climbing helmets, like the original Petzl type rock climbing helmets, are pretty heavy. It is nice, especially if you're going to be doing long expeditions, to have a lighter weight climbing helmet, because that strain on your neck from the weight of that helmet can compound pretty heavily over the course of a long trip. So look for a nice lightweight mountaineering helmet.
I got a quick helmet story for you, Josh. So Black Diamond Vapor helmet is one of the lightest weight ones that Black Diamond makes. I wish I had a little scale so you could see how much it weighs here, but it's basically nothing. As I mentioned, I go out rock climbing all of the time, and sometimes I'm the only person at the crag wearing a helmet. I wear my helmet all of the time because it's super lightweight, and to be honest, I put it on at the beginning of the day and I forget that I'm wearing it because it's so comfortable. So kind of looping back to those gear principles, finding gear that you like and that's really comfortable so you'll want to wear it when the time comes is super important.
Awesome. Thanks, Dani. The next thing I want to talk about is respiratory protection, and that's going to come in the form of a buff. If you don't know what a buff is, Dani's holding one up with a nice CTSS logo on it. All it is a thin tube of cloth. Some of them have a stitch down the side, or some of them are woven in a single tube. But the idea behind a buff is that it can be worn down just around your neck to keep your neck warm. But more importantly, you can pull it up over your mouth and your nose to protect your respiratory tract. So I talked about those vital organs that we're trying to protect. If you get a respiratory infection on a big expedition like Denali or Everest, that could be the end of your trip. They're really hard to recover from. Whereas if you make respiratory protection a top priority from the very beginning, you're going to set yourself up for success. Also know what the conditions are going to be on the trip you're going to be going on. So on Denali, all it is glacier, snow, and some rock. You have very little dust in that area. So you could get away with 1 or 2 buffs on a Denali trip. Whereas on the other hand, Aconcagua is incredibly dusty. The trek to Everest Base Camp is very dusty. I'll go through 2 or 3 buffs just on the trek to Everest Base Camp and then keep a clean one for the summit climb. So what I'll do oftentimes is I'll wear it one way one day and then I'll flip it upside down the next day. And that way I always have a clean section of cloth in front of my nose and mouth. And then the higher we climb on the mountains, the air gets drier, the air gets thinner. It dries out your respiratory tract. By keeping that buff pulled up as often as you can, both when you're climbing, relaxing in camp, or even sleeping at night, that can allow you to lubricate your respiratory tract and get more moist, warm air in to protect your lungs and throat. Yeah, buff is probably one of the most underrated pieces of equipment, but I always say don't ever leave home without one. So next is glacier glasses. So We need to protect our eyes at elevation. The higher we go, the closer we are to the sun. So the more impactful the UV is from the sun. When we're on the snow, and especially in overcast conditions, the UV actually will come down, penetrate, bounce off the snow, and bounce back up in your eyes. So now you're getting 2-3 times as much UV exposure to your eyes than you would just at sea level in town. So you can see that scale at the bottom on the darkness of the lenses that we are expecting. And what we're looking for is that 4 category. It's Cap 4 examples. Jubilo is kind of the big brand out there for mountaineering glacier glasses. An easy way to think about it, I always tell my folks they should be too dark to drive with. If you would feel comfortable driving with those glasses on, they're not dark enough for being on the glacier. And then also they do make prescription glacier glasses. So if you do wear prescription lenses and you can't or unable to wear contacts underneath them, then you would need to go to your optometrist and actually get a prescription glacier glass for your trip. And then on top of that, I've had folks show up with transition lenses and they'll say, oh, my optometrist said that these are dark enough. I guarantee you they're not. No transition lens gets that dark. So spend the money, get those prescription glacier glasses if you need them.
Yeah, if you go to your eye doc and get the prescription, actually on Jubil's website, you can just enter your prescription or upload your prescription information and they'll custom make a pair of, whatever style you want, Cat 4 glacier glasses, and they'll ship them right to your door. So you can get those from Jubil or from Smith. You just need to make sure that you have your one page of your eye prescription with you ready to upload when you go to check out there.
If you get snow blindness, which I've had a handful of folks over the years have that happen because they're not wearing their glacier glasses on the glacier or they don't have dark enough lenses. I've never had it happen, but I've been told that it feels like taking a handful of sand and rubbing it into your eyes. And there's no relief for it. Eye drops won't make that pain go away. And it can last up to a week. So do yourselves a favor. Don't end your trip because you wanted to save a few dollars on your glasses. And then the last thing is ski goggles or just regular goggles. It's nice to have 2 options of lenses, a dark lens and a light lens, especially for a peak where you're going to be doing a lot of climbing at night. So Everest is a really great example of that. We start from the South Col usually between 8 and 9 p.m. So we're in the dark for 8 to 10 hours. So having a clear lens goggle is really nice because that keeps all the dust and dryness out of your eyes. And then you can switch to that darker lens when the sun comes out. Another option is wearing your clear lens goggles over your glacier glasses if you want to go with just a single clear lens on your goggles. But that tends to be pretty uncomfortable. So I always recommend people have both a light and a dark lens. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes with things that you're going to wear on your head. And a lot of them that can be big trip enders if you don't have the appropriate equipment. So make sure you have a good helmet, couple of buffs, glacier glasses, and definitely ski goggles.
So Josh, we got a few questions in, Josh and Dani. First one is on the slide, but we haven't yet talked about it. I think we got 2 people asking about how to manage fog, or maybe if there's a specific brand of glasses that is likely to fog less.
I actually have noticed this a lot with folks. I don't know of any particular anti-fog stuff that you can put on there that would help. But the thing I've noticed that helps the most is putting your goggles or glasses on when they are actually warm. So don't sleep with them cold in your tent at night and then go put them on when they're cold. If we're in the dark, climb with your glacier glasses in a jacket pocket. Have your goggles inside your down parka or in your down suit so that when you go to put them on your warm skin, you're not getting that cold, warm differential that often causes things to fog up.
Dani, looks like you had a recommendation.
I do. I have a very specific recommendation. So Jubil makes a series of goggles called their Super Flow Pro goggles, which is a mouthful. And they claim that this technology has more ventilation in the goggles than other brands or other companies. that helps to prevent fogging. So if you just Google Jobol Super Flow Pro, it'll come up and a bunch of their goggles, and these are ones we recommend on our gear list. Their Launcher, their Lightyear. They even make an over-the-glass Lightyear goggle that's anti-fogging. Ultimately, I think all goggles end up fogging, and it's something that we just have to deal with in the mountains. But if we can stack the odds in our favor and get the, no fog goggles, might as well do it.
Alrighty. And then one more question about something on our face, nose guards. We didn't put it on here. How many expeditions do you think recommend a nose guard? I know I've just seen it recently because we've been in the Everest season. I know I've seen a lot of the climbers have nose guards on. Thoughts on those?
I know Bico is kind of the main brand that makes them moldable, small cloth nose guards. I personally don't like them. I just use my buff pulled up over my nose to serve the same purpose, and then just a ton of sunscreen. But it's a personal choice. Folks find that their Glacier glasses actually fog up more with them because it's reflecting down, and then all that moisture gets trapped underneath the nose guard and causes the Glacier glasses to fog up.
Yeah, great advice. Appreciate that. Dani, anything to add there? Sorry.
No, I'll just say, Josh and I were both just trekking to Everest Base Camp. And if you looked at either one of us, on the trek on any day, both of us had our buffs fully pulled up over our noses so that you couldn't really see any of our faces. I took a picture at one point and Josh said, "You could be anybody. You got to take your buff off your face. Your mom's not going to even know that it's you." So I'd agree with Josh that just, having that buff up over kind of takes the place of that nose guard if you don't have one.
That makes sense. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and push forward. We are going to move to the upper body and start talking about layering systems now. So woohoo, get excited. So Dani, Get us started with those upper body layers and what we recommend.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. So there is a lot of information on this slide, and I'm going to talk through it from the layers closest to our body, kind of moving outward. So we'll start with our next to skin layers. Kind of our number one favorite layer here at CTSS is the sun hoodie, and I brought mine. I've got a hot pink Patagonia sun hoodie here. It's got a hood on it. It's hard to see, but it's super lightweight fabric. The sun can't shine through it, but you can almost see through it if you do hold it up to the light. This is going to be a go-to layer, whether you are trekking to Everest Base Camp and it's hot during the day, whether you're on the glacier on Denali and the sun is beating down on you and it's shining up from the glacier. Having this sun hoodie is not only going to protect your skin from the sun, you're going to have to apply less sunscreen because more of your skin is covered, and it's also going to keep you nice and cool. So this is kind of one of our go-to layers, and we will use this as a replacement or as one of our base layers. In addition to this, I usually bring like a wool base layer that I'm sleeping in at night or wearing if it's colder. I didn't bring one of those here with me today to share with you, but those are kind of the two base layer next to skin layers that we like just a wool base layer and then that sun hoodie. After that, we move into our mid-weight layer options. If you've ever seen a CTSS gear list, we've got a couple options on there. We've got anything from just like a zip-up fleece jacket to a puffy vest, which I know Josh personally likes and was wearing on our Everest Base Camp trek, to just like a lightweight down jacket, like something like I'm wearing here, a nice lightweight wrap jacket. I actually brought another option to show you. Patagonia make this nice lightweight hoodie. It's got a hood on it. I can pull it up. I can zip it all the way up if I get chilly. And this is just a synthetic layer. Synthetic or down are good for a mid layer. I like to have a couple options. I like to have like a full zip fleece and then bring a lightweight down jacket as kind of my second mid-weight or mid-layer option. After that, we move into our down jacket spectrum. And Stephanie made a great graphic for us here on the bottom. So we'll kind of talk through those lightweight to heavyweight. So we start with a lightweight down jacket, something like I'm wearing here, something that I'm going to bring as one of my mid-weight layers. They're great for warmer days on the mountain when you want just a little something over that sun hoodie. Maybe you stop to take pictures or you stop for your snack and you just want to throw something on to keep warm. On a nice hot day, this is a great jacket to do so. These jackets are generally filled with 100 to 300 grams of down. Now, the actual jacket is going to weigh more than that because all of the rest of the fabric and the zippers weigh. more, but you want to look for something with 1 to 300 grams of down. Great examples are the Microlight Alpine jacket, like Stephanie and I are wearing here, or Hamali makes the Accelerator down jacket, which is also another great option. Moving up from there, we've got our midweight down jackets, not to be confused with our midweight layers. This is a bigger down jacket than our midweight layers. These jackets are perfect for Kilimanjaro, Ecuador, or Azaba. I brought mine as a part of my layering system on the Everest Base Camp trek, but this is going to be something like the Rab Positron Pro down jacket. You can see that this has a lot more puff, a lot more heft to it than the one I'm wearing here. These guys are usually filled with 200 to 300 grams of high quality down, and they look a lot like this. So definitely a step up in the puffy factor from our lightweight jackets here. And then after that, we've got our heavyweight jackets, or our expedition parkas. These you're going to want to have on Denali, on Aconcagua, on Vincent, on Everest. These are filled with 500 plus grams of high quality down. I've got my Mountain Hardwear Absolute Zero parka here that I wore when I worked in Antarctica. You can see another huge step up in the puffiness factor. It takes up almost the whole screen as I try to show you guys this. So we like the Mountain Hardwear Absolute Zero parka. We also like the Feathered Friends Kumbu Expedition down parka. Both are great. A couple of things that we want to look for in our big mountaineering parka is going to be having good pockets. So you can see on this one, we've got 2 chest pockets here where we can put stuff. And then we also have 2 side pockets to stick your hands in. And then kind of one of the cooler features, as I unzip this here, is inside our jacket, we've got water bottle pockets. So you can stick your water bottle inside your down jacket. It's nice and close to your body. It's going to help keep it from freezing. So that way, when you pull up to a rest break, say on Denali, you've got your big down parka right there on the top of your pack. You're probably not moving it or wearing it while you move, but you pull that parka out, you go to put it on, and then right there in all of those pockets, you've got your snacks ready to go. You've got some extra gloves to put on. You've got your water bottle that you can just grab from the inside. And you're a one-stop shop for everything you need for that break so that you're not digging through your pack while you're on the side of the mountain there. So that's kind of the features we like to look for. And as I said, we like the Mountain Hardwear and the Feathered Friends ones. There's a ton of other options out there too. A lot of companies make a lot of good jackets, and finding the one that fits you is always a fun little treasure hunt.
So I have one question for you guys. What was the heaviest weight down jacket you brought to the Everest Base Camp trek just to get to base camp? Did you bring all the way up to the heavyweight, or did you just bring a midweight and a lightweight?
I will preface this with I am a very cold person to begin with. It's probably 70 degrees here in Wyoming today, and I am actually wearing a down jacket because I am cold in my office. So I brought my really big down parka. I also already owned it prior to this expedition. I didn't go out and have to purchase it. So I brought this as my biggest one, but primarily I was wearing a lighter weight down jacket and then that kind of mid-weight down jacket that we were talking about, that Rab Positron Pro. Josh, on the other hand, is probably going to have a different answer to this as he doesn't run as cold.
I actually have the same answer, but it has nothing to do with how cold I get. But no, you definitely need to have the largest parka for an Everest Base Camp trek. The last couple of nights when we're actually at Everest Base Camp, it's incredibly cold. We were able to do the whole trek and only stay in tea houses the entire time. And there was a tea house at base camp we were staying in. Might be a different story, but you are going to spend multiple nights in a tent, both at Everest Base Camp and at Lobuche Base Camp. So you definitely need to have that big parka.
Awesome. There was a question specifically about somebody trekking to Everest Base Camp and the recommendations. So I just wanted to make sure we clearly asked, how heavy of parka are we going with this? You can see those recommended products there. But as Dani and Josh are alluding to, these are products that we like. It doesn't mean it's going to be the product that's for you. And then also when you look at gear lists, like Dani said, I get cold. So she's going to adjust her gear and things like that and have a conversation with her guide, who was Josh, or whoever, her friends, if she's going out with them, and making sure her gear is on point and in line with what's needed for the objectives. Thinking about the layers, we looked at 5 layers here. Josh, is there a time and a place to adjust these numbers up or down?
Yeah, it depends on the trip. This would be a perfect recommendation for an Everest Base Camp trek, a Kilimanjaro climb. If you're going to be exposed, living the tent life for an extended period of time, a Denali trip, an Everest trip, you might add another midweight insulating layer or a couple of sun hoodies. There is flexibility in being able to manage those layers, and it doesn't have to be that exact set hard and fast list. But if you have something that combines to meet one of those things, like two lighter jackets that would work to make your midweight layer, that also works as well.
Okay. And so, Josh, you might be able to answer this question too. If you were climbing Mount Adams tomorrow and it was going to be about 20 degrees outside, maybe 25, which of these jackets would you bring for climbing?
That I'm actively walking in?
Yeah. You're actively walking in. So
Probably,
not overnight, but you're actively walking in. Which of these layers would you bring?
I'd probably be in a sun hoodie with a soft shell jacket on while I'm moving. But then we always want to have a larger insulating layer to put on when you stop, because as soon as you stop, you're going to get cold. So it's not just saying only bring those two items, but that's probably what you would be moving in.
Awesome. And then we had two questions about gloves. It was specifically about the Black Diamond guide gloves, which are pictured here, and they're one of our favorite products to recommend. They come with a little packet of Nick wax. Use it or not is the question.
I'm going to personally say it depends on how often you're going to use these. If you bought them for one Baker trip, you'd probably be fine without them. But if you're going to be out on a Denali trip, a Vincent trip, using these on Everest for weeks, months at a time, definitely use that waterproofer and make them last for the whole trip.
Appreciate that. So Nick wax, folks, is something you put on gloves to waterproof it. If you're out for a really long time, it's good to go ahead and do that ahead of time. But correct me if I'm wrong, most gear comes with some waterproofing already done to it.
They say on the package, Gore-Tex liner, that kind of stuff, you probably don't need to. But if they're a straight up leather glove, and I use just a simple leather glove most of the time, then I definitely would waterproof them beforehand because they don't have that Gore-Tex liner in them.
So we have one more glove question, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart as somebody who has Raynaud's, and I'm sure I am not alone in the Raynaud's group. I don't know if Andrew has Raynaud's. He asked the question also. His hands get very cold to the point of hurting, and especially when using poles. What do you recommend for people that struggle with warm hands, especially people that have Raynaud's? And Raynaud's, folks, is where you just lose a little circulation, your hands get extra cold, and you can be susceptible to cold injuries more.
Yeah, great question. So the warmest glove on the market currently is the Black Diamond Guide glove that we have pictured here. That is the warmest glove. Mitts are warmer than gloves. You've got all of your digits there together, having a nice little party, keeping each other warm rather than being separated and having to keep in each individual finger warm. So having cold hands, yes, buy the warmest gloves on the market. If those aren't cutting it, maybe you're also wearing mitts on top of that. But as we're going to talk about a little bit later when we jump more into climbing gear, being sure that you are able to use your hands, like whether or not you're holding your trekking poles, you're holding your ascender, you're clipping and unclipping your carabiners. You need to be able to do all of that stuff with your hands. Couple other tips, outdoor research makes a couple of actual heated gloves that you can, plug in and charge at night. Those work great. A lot of them in and of themselves aren't big enough or warm enough. So using them as a part of your glove layering system can work. Also using hand warmers, the little packets you crack open, they get air, you shake them up, you pop them in. Those can work. The higher altitude we get, kind of the less well they work. And I'm sure Josh can speak more to that. But that's kind of my quick synopsis on the hands. Layer those gloves. Buy the warmest gloves on the market pictured here. And if that's still not cutting it, try to think about getting some big mitts.
Very cool. I get cold hands, so I'm very thoughtful in my hands. I have a pair of these rubber ice fishing gloves that I use for all sorts of outdoor activities and things. As a chronic cold person, they're on Amazon. They're not even that expensive, but those have really helped me as well because I still have a lot of like the ability to use my hands and my fingers, and they're quite warm. So getting creative with what you're looking at, that might be fun for you if you do have really cold hands.
It seems like there's a lot of people that are curious about their gloves. And yeah, you don't want to get frostbite. Two things about hand warmers. If you wake up in the middle of the night on your climb and your hands are warm, still open a pair of those hand warmers and shake them up and get them activated. Put them in your jacket. And then that way, when your hands do get cold, they're already ready warm because they take an hour or so to get fully warm. And then for those of you, if you are going to climb Everest and be using supplemental oxygen, if you put them in your oxygen mask for about 10 seconds, they'll be probably warmer than you want them to be because they are activated by oxygen. So.
Wow. That's a fun pro tip right there. I never thought about that. We always talk about how the hand warmers don't work as well at altitude because of the oxygen, but interesting. Okay, folks, let's go ahead and move to the lower body. What we're going to look at here is also a layering system as well. Josh is going to kind of demystify those 4 different layers that you see there. And then we're going to look at a few specific things to do with boots and crampons. Dani has a few pairs of boots to show us and a pair of crampons strapped onto them as well. So I think with no further ado, Josh, you're right back on talking about the leg layers.
Yeah, I mean, just as important as your upper body layers, you need to keep your legs warm. They're what's powering you up the mountain. So in terms of the layering system, we have 5 layers on the upper body. We have 4 on the lower body. And that first layer would be the next to skin layer. And this doesn't need to be something that's super thick. A lot of times during gear checks for expeditions, people show up and they have 4 or 5 different leg layer options. I always tell people to lean toward the lighter layer for climbing because having those on and then your climbing pants over that tends to be plenty warm. And then if you have a second, maybe mid-weight or heavier weight next to skin layer, that's what you might sleep in at night or wear under your down suit if you're high on an 8,000 meter peak. So first layer is that next to skin. Second is going to be your soft shell climbing pants. Again, I tend to lean toward a lighter material for this. The OR Cirque pant is the one that I always go to. It's plenty thin. I have good mobility when I'm wearing them, but they're also warm enough while I'm moving. A lot of times I won't wear that next to skin layer unless I know it's going to be really, really cold out. The third layer, and probably the most versatile layer in this, is going to be your hard shell pants, which need to be full zip, full side zip, meaning you could put them on over your boots and crampons. So if you have the type of pants that they just zip up about the middle of your calf, that's not a full zip pant. They need to go all the way up, at least mid-thigh, if not all the way up to your hip. And they need to be completely waterproof. So Gore-Tex material for your rain pants or something equivalent. And the nice thing about the rain pants or the hard shell pants, as they're listed here, they function if it's raining, they keep you dry. If it gets super windy, they cut the wind. You can put them right over your climbing pants. And if you get really cold, you can also put those on, and those help insulate and hold heat in. A lot of people think of them just as rain pants, and they're actually multifunctional in that regard. And then the last one is going to be your insulated pants. You really need to know where you're going to be using these on a trip. Vinson, Denali, you need to have a really high quality, either down or synthetic insulated pant. Whereas on something like Mount Baker or the Ecuador volcanoes, you could go with a lighter insulating pant, like the Mountain Hardwear compressor is a good option. Same thing with those. They need to have full side zips. Again, if you get too cold and you need to increase the warmth on your legs, you need to be able to put those pants on over your soft shell pants without taking your boots and crampons off. Anything to add on that, Dani?
No, I think you covered it all. I've got my insulated synthetic pants here. They're the, Black Diamond ballet pants. But you can see what Josh is talking about here. You can just zip them all the way down from the top so that I could put them on over while wearing boots and crampons.
Awesome. Hey, can I jump in real quick and ask one question? It's about women's specific soft shell pants and hard shell pants. I did send along a blog that we have about managing the call on Everest. It's more geared towards our down suits and things like that, but we also talk about some really neat products. Dani, there were a couple soft shell pants in there, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if these are on there, but they're on our gear list. I really like the Arc'teryx Women's Gamma pant. It's the Arc'teryx version of the Outdoor Research Cirque pant that Josh was mentioning that he really likes. I find they are tailored super well to a woman's body, and they are a high-rise fit, which personally I like more. It sits above my harness and above that waist strap on my pack, so nothing's kind of rubbing funny in there. So those are the Arc'teryx Gamma soft shell pants that I really like.
Perfect. But Dani, is there any hard shell specifics for women that you know of?
Yes, I actually, just before the Everest Base Camp trek, went to my local gear store here in Lander and picked up these Mountain Hardwear full zip rain pants. They are tailored to a women's specific fit. And the thing I like about these Mountain Hardwear ones is they come in a short, a regular, and a long. I'm pretty tall at 5'11", and so having a brand that makes pants that are long enough so I don't look like I cut all my pants off at my ankles or halfway off my calf is super important to me. So Mountain Hardwear makes that. Arc'teryx makes the different lengths as well. But I like these Mountain Hardwear ones.
Awesome. So Josh and Dani, anything else to add on the leg layers before we talk about boots and crampons?
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking about, and I thought of this when Dani was talking about how tall she is, I'm kind of built like a T-Rex. I got short little arms and stocky thighs. Know the fit of the stuff that you're buying. Don't just go online and order everything. I would definitely encourage you to go in and try stuff on because things fit differently for different folks. And then also make sure, and this goes for both the lower body and upper body, make sure that everything fits in a sequential order. You wouldn't wear your sun hoodie over your down parka and vice versa. So a lot of the times for myself personally, I'll buy their size medium kind of base layer and light insulating stuff. And then I'll buy a size large in my parka and my rain pants because those fit better over everything. So try things on with the other items so you know how they're going to fit when you're wearing all of it.
I'm going to let you guys jump in and go ahead and do some show and tell, talk about boots. I know we have on hand a single and a triple boot to show off today, and I would love to hear a little bit more about what boot are you choosing first? What boot are you starting with? Dani, are you chatting about this one?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Josh can jump in here as we talk about them. Here I have the La Sportiva Nepal Evo boot. It's a single mountaineering boot. A great boot if you're starting out on Mount Baker. When I lived in Seattle and was climbing all over the Cascades, these were my go-to boots. I wore them on Baker and Schuxen and everything else that I climbed. I actually didn't wear them on Rainier. I wore a warmer boot, but that goes back to the fact that I run cold all of the time. So single mountaineering boot here, La Sportiva Nepal Evo. It's got a full metal shank in the bottom of it that you can't see, so it's super hard. Like I can't flex this thing at all. And then on the front, you can see there's a little lip, and there's also a nice lip on the back. I got these secondhand from a rental store that was selling them in Seattle. It can be a great place to buy your first pair of boots, as mountaineering boots are usually running, $1,000+ plus. So that's our single boot. Josh, do you have anything to add about these?
No, definitely a single leather boot with a Gore-Tex liner like the Nepal Evos are ideal for kind of anything, maybe 14,000 feet and lower. The thing with La Sportiva tends to run very narrow in their boots. So Scarpa is another great brand. They make basically the equivalent boot of all the same boots that La Sportiva does, but in a wider last. So something to think about when you're picking your boots.
Yep, that's a great point. So I have a long, narrow foot. La Sportiva fits me really well, and Scarpas don't. And I know that Scarpas fit a lot of climbers who just have that bigger foot base. So like the La Sportiva Nepal Evo, Scarpa makes the Mont Blanc or the Mont Blanc Pro. And Scarpa actually makes that in both a men's and a woman's boot, which is really nice to have. After our single mountaineering boots, we have doubles, but Stephanie, do you have something to
Yeah, I was going to chime in. I have a wide toe box and I love wide toe shoes. Loa boots have also worked really well, and they have some really nice mountaineering equivalent ones as well. And so I've had really good success with that.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, so in between our single boots and our triple boots, which I'll show next, we have what we call a double boot. That's going to just be an extra layer of insulation on that single boot. Usually has a built-in gaiter on it with a zipper. Those are great for our Ecuador volcanoes trips. They're great for cold days on Rainier when you have cold feet like me, and kind of some other, 6,000 meter peaks and below. After that, we bring in the big boots. We've got our La Sportiva Olympus Mons here. Scarpa makes the Scarpa Phantom Thermic 8000 HD boot, which is the equivalent of this one. But you see here on the outside, we've got our gaiter. If I can get the Velcro undone, we can open these guys up and pull that down. And inside our triple boot, we've got our layers. So you can see our outside layer, our inside layer, and then our innest of in layers here. So really 3 layers, hence we use the words triple boots. These are going to be great for peaks like Aconcagua, Everest, Denali, Mount Vinson, places where it gets really cold and you want to make sure that your feet stay warm.
I think that boot you're holding right there, best boot that's ever been made for high altitude climbing. The thing to consider with the newer 8,000 meter boots, they all have these wraparound zippers, which are super lightweight, but tend to have issues with them when they get really cold. So if you can find an older pair of Olympus Mons, like the ones that Dani was just holding, those are money. Those things are awesome. That's what I use.
Can I go ahead and jump in with a few questions? How do you break in your boots if you're not going out in snow and getting them kind of broken in that way?
People might give you some weird looks if you're wearing 8,000 meter boots out on a hiking trail, but it works. You don't need to be on snow to break in boots. The nice thing about the newer models of a lot of these boots, they don't have a long break-in time. They're kind of designed to take right off the shelf and fit well for most people. So a lot of people, it used to be, especially with plastic mountaineering boots, people would want a lot of break-in time for them, but that's kind of an older idea these days.
Awesome. So Julia took us up on our, dropping in her specific climb in her boots and getting your feedback on that. Julia is climbing some 6,000 meter peaks in Peru, and she has the Scarpa Phantom Tex, and she's wondering if you all feel like that will be a good boot choice.
I got you. So the Phantom Tech boot by Scarpa is in between their single Mont Blanc boot and their Phantom 6,000 meter boot. So it's kind of like a boot and a half. It's a single boot with a built-in gaiter. It's right on the line. It's probably going to be a little bit on the colder side, and I would recommend getting a pair of Phantom 6,000s if you're going to be climbing 6,000 meter peaks.
Perfect. And then we had one more question about crampons. So we talked a little bit about using that horizontal front point. Steel is always recommended, but the style that it straps onto our foot is variable. Step in or strap on? What do you recommend, especially when you're on the side of a mountain?
Great question. I'll kind of kick us off and then pass this off to Josh here. So I've got the Petzl Vasak crampon here on my 8,000 meter boots. You can see on the front here, I have like the plastic toe bale that my strap is running through. I don't have the wire toe bale that would sit on this front lip. I find that the wire toe bales can be a little finicky to get on your boots and to be staying on your boots when you're wearing them all day. So we like these plastic toe bales. We have our horizontal front points, which are going to be the perfect crampon for anything unless you're into vertical ice climbing. I know Josh can talk more about this, but he's worn crampons like this on Everest and all over the world, and they've worked great for him. On the back here, we have our toe bale clip. You can see here, it's going to sit right on that heel welt of our boot and snug that crampon on up so that it's snug on the boot. And then from there, we run the strap around and buckle it here. You'll see we've got our center plate here on our crampon. That's going to allow us to adjust it to different boot sizes. If you are over a boot size, I think it's 12 or 13, you'll need a crampon long bar or an extender bar, which can be purchased separately to get up to those bigger sizes so that they fit those boots.
Just while we're on that topic, I see a lot of folks that have feet over 12, 13, and they need those extender bars. If you have black diamond crampons, you have to buy a black diamond extender bar or Petzl with Petzl. They're not interchangeable. So make sure you get them with the brand crampon that you own. Definitely, if you are doing mountaineering, then the plastic toe bail is the ideal. Because with mountaineering, we're going to do a lot of flat-footed walking, cross hill stepping, duck foot walking. And with those wire bails, if you're putting the pressure on the crampon laterally, then the boot will come out of the crampon. So those wire bail crampons are designed for front point cramponing for vertical ice climbing. So definitely go with that plastic toe bail. And then if you have a difference between vertical front points or horizontal are preferred for mountaineering. And then lastly, definitely always steel crampons. Aluminum crampons will break on even firm ice. So make sure you get those steel crampons.
Perfect. And then we always recommend 12 point, correct?
Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. Just wanted to make sure that got shared. Awesome. So I think we're moving on. We have just a couple more slides on gear, and then we'll be wrapping things up, folks. So packs and duffels. Lots of information here. Well, actually, we kept it pretty slim because it's so personal what packs people love, what bells and whistles they do or don't like on them, and things like that. So I think Josh is going to get us kicked off talking about day packs and climbing packs, but we're going to also show and tell some stuff. And then, of course, talk about the duffel and a very essential piece of gear, the compression sack as well. So Josh, break down a little bit of what we're looking for and kind of the mindset when you're purchasing day packs and climbing packs.
Yeah, so there's a lot on the market. Some will be more geared toward hiking and others will be geared more toward climbing. And what we're looking for, or what we would recommend, are backpacks that are more geared toward mountaineering and climbing as opposed to backpacking. Backpacking packs tend to have a lot of extra bells and whistles on them that you don't necessarily need. With a day pack or a climbing pack, we want them to have minimal features on the outside because we want all of the stuff that we're carrying, minus your ice axe and crampons, to be inside of the backpack. Less stuff jangling around. So for a day pack, I think Dani has a good example. We both use the Black Diamond Speed 40 pack, which is great. It has a couple of compression straps on the side, a spot to put your ice axe and crampons, and that's it in terms of the exterior options. So Dani, do you have that pack to show?
Yeah, I got it right here. So you can see we've just got our side straps. I actually took my crampon straps off for the Everest Base Camp trek because I didn't want them dangling around. And then we got a spot right here. You can slide your ice axe through and attach it up here. But that's it. Otherwise, we just got our shoulder straps on the back and just a nice tube opening on the top there. So super simple for that Black Diamond Speed pack.
Yep, awesome. I think there's that picture of the Hyperlight pack there too. If you're really looking to save those ounces, that's a good option as well. They're very sleek and don't have a ton of extra bells and whistles on them. So for a climbing or mountaineering pack, depends on where you're going. If you get a uber large 100-liter pack, that'll still work for a trip that would only need a 50-liter pack. Whereas if you buy a 50-liter pack and you need it for Denali, Aconcagua, Vinson, it's not going to cut it. It's not going to be big enough. So if you're going to buy one pack for mountaineering or climbing, I would say bigger is better. The bigger they get, the more they weigh, obviously. But personally, for Aconcagua, Vinson, Denali, any big, long expedition, I'm going to go with that pack that's featured there, the Mountain Hardwear AMG. And I think Dani has the BMG.
I have the old BMG before they redesigned it to be the AMG.
Same pack.
Yes.
Couple different features on it. But that can fit everything you need for one of those big expeditions, especially if you're having to haul a sled behind you. It actually has sled attachment points on it. That pack would probably be too big for Everest if you're going to buy two different packs. A 60-liter pack tends to be plenty for Mount Everest. Keep in mind, you do need to be able to fit an oxygen bottle and all your other stuff in it up high. A good option for that is the Black Diamond Mission 50 or 75. That's what I use on Mount Everest. For duffel bags, if you look at the gear video that Mike did about duffel bags, he talks about that North Face Base Camp extra large or double extra large. That is the kind of Cadillac duffel bag for any big expedition, whether you're going to be putting that duffel bag on a sled on Denali or Mount Vinson, or using it to get to base camp on Aconcagua or Mount Everest. They're super durable. They're relatively lightweight. They're made of PVC. They are fairly waterproof. They're not 100% waterproof. But same as if you're going to only buy one option, I would lean toward the bigger one, the double XL. You can fit everything you need for a Mount Everest trip in 2 of those duffel bags. Leaving the States or for wherever you're traveling to or from, to Kathmandu, to Everest Base Camp and back. They're plenty big and super durable. If you are on one of those trips where you're having stuff either portered, yacked, or muled into an area, we also want to waterproof our duffel bags. And the best thing to use for those are just big, thick, black contractor trash bags. Don't spend a bunch of money on a bunch of waterproofing compression sacks. Just save yourself some money and use trash bags. They work great.
The only thing I would add is if you're flying around the world, checking your big backpack is not the best idea. It's got straps on the outside. It's got your waist belt. And the probability of one of those getting broken or snapped off or something as you're flying around the world to Aconcagua or Everest is high. So just making sure you kind of throw all of those backpacks in that North Face duffel or duffels that you're bringing can be a really good idea.
And then lastly, how are we going to store all of our equipment in our packs or our duffel bags? There's kind of 2 schools of thought on this. One is putting everything into individual compartments and putting those into your backpack in stuff sacks, or having the majority of your stuff be loose inside of the duffel bag or backpack. I'm a big proponent of stuff being fairly loose, except for really small items like my socks and underwear and extra buffs. Those will go into compression or into stuff sacks. My sleeping bag will go into a big compression stuff sack. And what that is because those big down sleeping bags don't want to get very small very easily. You stuff it into a larger stuff sack, and then it actually has 3 to 4 straps on the side. You pull those tight and you can get a stuff sack that's this big down to half the size. So at least one compression stuff sack for your sleeping bag is important. And then the reason I like to have everything fairly loose in my backpack is if the weather changes quickly, I want to be able to quickly pull out whatever I need and put on my parka or my rain jacket and not have to pull my pack off, pull a stuff sack out, open that stuff sack, pull the thing out that I want. So it really depends on what you're comfortable with. But if the weather changes quickly, timing can be of the essence when getting your stuff out. So something to consider with how many stuff sacks you have that you bring.
Perfect. Awesome. So folks, lots of information here. What I heard most of all is that climbing specific packs are going to be the way to go for your day pack and even your climbing pack. Bigger is better. You would rather have enough room for everything than not enough, whether it's in your pack or in your duffel, things like that. Dani and Josh, I do think I heard you say, though, if somebody's just getting started with mountaineering, maybe doing one of our Baker Alpine Academies, in a pinch, would a backpacking pack work for something like Baker, your first time out there, getting used to everything and making sure this is a sport you like?
I would say absolutely, if that's what you already have. If you're starting from ground zero and you don't have anything, you're mountaineer and you do a Baker Alpine Academy and realize, man, mountaineering is not for me, but I still want to be able to go backpacking. Your mountaineering backpack will still work for backpacking down the road. So kind of depends on what your long-term goals are going to be.
So, and folks, remember, there are different sizes of packs. Do the measurements, measure them out, find the one that fits you. I used to be really hesitant towards a women's specific pack, and then somebody explained that it is really better because of the way we're shaped, and I transitioned, and I was like, oh, this is great. So try on the women's specific ones or try on ones that do work for you. Find out what you like, because you're going to be wearing this for a long time, every day for a number of hours, whether it's your pack or your day pack. It's going to be on you. Awesome. Folks, I'm going to go ahead and push forward because we're going to get into our last big slide, which is like all of our climbing tools, gears, and gadgets. So let's go ahead and dive into that. Dani's got a whole slew of tiny things to show you. And then we have a few questions about ice axes that we'll make sure we ask as well. And then Dani, I always love it when you show that climbing harness because it just looks like it's nothing. I know it's bomber. but it just looks like nothing every time I see it. So Dani, I think you're jumping in here. Go right ahead.
Yeah, awesome. We'll start with our ice axes here. So I've got my ice axe that I climbed, everything in the Cascades with Baker, Rainier, Shooks, and you'll see that it's actually shorter. You can see the whole thing in the frame here with me. When we're thinking about our mountaineering ice axes, the shorter, the better. There's and I know Mike talks a lot about this in one of his gear videos on our YouTube, but kind of the older saying, when you hold your ice axe by your side, it should hit around your ankle. We don't actually want that anymore. That's a little bit too long. I have one of those from when I very first started mountaineering in college. You can see it doesn't even fit on the screen here unless I turn it sideways. And these are they're too long. They're too big for what we're doing mountaineering. So the shorter, the better on ice axes. And then when you're purchasing yours, you'll see here we've got the pick on this side. We've got our ads in the back. If you can kind of see that, you can use that. You'll probably see your guides like carving out steps with it as you're walking. You can do a lot of things. Some of them, and this is mostly more for ice tools, will have like a hammer on the back if you're hammering pickets or tent anchors, things like that. But we're looking to have an ads on the back of our ice axe.
That's great. I mean, yours has that slight curved shaft. That's not a make or break. It's just it adds a little bit more leverage with the pick if you're using it more in an ice climbing fashion. But a straight shaft or a slight curved shaft like that is perfectly fine.
I have two ice axe questions that I'll go ahead and jump in with. Generally, when we're mountaineering, just need one ice axe. Is there an instance where we would ever need multiple of them?
For general mountaineering purpose, just a single ice axe is all you need.
And then a lot of the ice axes also come with leashes attached to it, so you don't lose it. Do you recommend that for ice axe for mountaineering purposes as well?
We actually ask folks to remove those. And the reason being is if you have that attached to either your wrist or your climbing harness, that's how some folks would wear it, and you were to fall and lose control of your ice axe, now you have a super sharp object attached to you as you're sliding. So if you were to fall and lose control of your axe, you actually want it to be as far away from you as possible.
That makes sense. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got harnesses next. I have Stephanie's favorite harness here. This is the Petzl Altitude harness. It looks like it's nothing, but I can guarantee you that this thing is rated to hold you if you were to fall in a crevasse or if you needed to sit back and hang on a fixed line or something like that. This harness packs up to almost nothing. I can pack this up here and it's about the size of my fist. It also weighs nothing. So those are kind of a couple differences that this has to like a normal rock climbing harness. If you're coming to Mount Baker for the first time and you've done some rock climbing in the past, can your rock climbing harness work? Sure. You're going to want to make sure to put it on before you put your boots and crampons on, because a lot of rock climbing harnesses don't have detachable leg loops like this guy has. So on my mountaineering harness, I can unclip both of my leg loops here. And then I can completely undo my waist belt so that if I take it out of the belay loop, I can just put it on over my boots and crampons and I'm not having to step through those leg loops and kind of thread my sharp crampons through. So from there, I just bring my belay loop up. You can thread your waist loop back together and then reclip those leg loops. So that's the really nice thing about a mountaineering harness. They're lightweight, they pack really small, and they fully come apart so you can put them on top after you've put those boots and crampons on once you're outside your tent gearing up for the day.
That's the harness I use for everything except for rock climbing. That would not be a rock climbing harness.
I actually forgot to grab all of my carabiners, but I'll talk about them quick here. So on our gear list, you'll see two types of carabiners, a locking carabiner and a non-locking carabiner. They're exactly as they sound. One of them, you can just push that gate open, and the other one kind of screws. You can see it on the slide that Stephanie has here. It's got that shiny gold screw gate so that when you are hitting that gate, it's not going to open up. With carabiners, we want to keep them as simple as possible in the mountaineering world. You're going to have on those big black diamond glide gloves. It's going to be cold. You want to be able to just easily open that carabiner and clip it into the line, clip it to your harness, clip it to your ascender, whatever you need to do. You want to be able to easily do that. There's a lot of specialty carabiners out there that all have their place. And that just isn't necessarily in the world of mountaineering when you're wearing those big gloves.
Bigger the better. Just like Dani was saying with those big guide gloves, you want to be able to manipulate the gates with the big gloves on. So for your locking carabiners, make sure they're big D-shaped carabiners, and that'll be plenty good.
And then last but not least here, we've got our soft goods. So on our gear list, especially if you're heading to Mount Baker this summer, you're going to see a lot of what we call soft goods on there. They're probably going to be a little confusing. So I'm going to try to break it down for us. In our soft goods, we have our cord that we're going to bring and our slings. Of our slings, we're going to ask you to bring two different types. One is a single length. This is a nylon Black Diamond single length sling. You can get them at REI, you can get them online from Black Diamond. After that, we've got a double length sling, which is literally double the length of the single length sling. There's nothing crazy here. This one's also from Black Diamond, and it's just double the length of that single length sling. Nylon works, Dyneema works. We've got the Dyneema sling in the picture there. And then the second thing we're going to ask you to bring is some cord. This can get a little bit confusing, but really what you want to bring, I think we say 20 to 30 feet on our gear list of, 6 millimeter cord. And you are going to use this for all sorts of things. You can chop it up and make press X. You're going to use it to maybe attach your ascender and things like that. REI sells cord that you can just say, hey, I want to get 20 feet of that. You'll ask the guy, he'll roll it out and chop it off. Or they sell pre-packaged, in a nice little plastic thing, 20, 30, 40 feet, different increments. So either of that works, but that's what we're asking for when we ask for cord.
Yeah, and I'll add in something. I know, folks, when you're gearing up for that first climb, just like the cords and the paracords and what is all this, it's all just really simple stuff. I know Josh has mentioned this. The guides are always going to have extra gear, some specialty items, stuff like that. So if it doesn't feel like you have a lot, that's okay. Or if you're missing something, they're going to have backup. And then I know that I've heard one of our past guides that is guiding on Baker with us. He guides all over the world with us, Dallas. He's mentioned a lot with carabiners, just get the basic stuff. You have to be able to use it with your gloves on. I think you were saying that too, Dani. I know I get upsold stuff at gear shops all the time. And those fancy ones that are really cool for rock climbing maybe aren't the best for mountaineering. So the standard stuff for carabiners, soft goods is really what we're looking for here. It is simple stuff, and it's not going to feel like too crazy fancy or specialized. So we're going to wrap things up. This is our last real kind of core slide, and we're going to talk about use gear as we wrap up after that. So we want to talk about advanced climbing tools and get into down suits, ascenders, all that good stuff. This is a fun topic for people that have eyes on 8,000 meter peaks. So I think Josh is going to talk a little bit about down suits and some of these specialty items, and then Dani's going to jump in with more women's considerations, especially as we think about these higher altitude climbs.
Yeah, so obviously for an 8,000 meter peak, we need to have quality insulation to keep ourselves warm. Mountain Hardwear, who was kind of the first big company to make down suits, their slogan used to be wearable sleeping bags. And that's a great way to think about your down suit. So currently the best down suit on the market is in this photo here, this Himali down suit. Really high quality exterior, high quality down, a ton of it, super warm. So if you're buying a down suit for a trip, I would definitely recommend that one. If you have an older Mountain Hardwear or North Face down suit, they're great. It really also depends on what you wear underneath it. But anything under 8,000 meters, a down suit's not recommended. So for Denali, Aconcagua, Vinson, definitely go with a two-piece parka and insulated pants. And for Aconcagua and Denali, a lighter insulated pant would be preferred. The down suit's going to be way too warm for any of those three mountains. Yeah, it's kind of fun walking around in a sleeping bag. And then also things you're going to need for Everest, Manaslu, Denali is a quality climbing ascender, or Jumar as they're called. They are made right and left-handed, but try not to get fixated on if you buy a right-handed one, you can only use it with your right hand. You're going to get plenty of practice on any of those trips using it interchangeably. But I would recommend, this is my one specific brand gear recommendation, go with the Black Diamond Ascender. The Petzl one, which is their competitor, has a hinge on the bottom and it tends to slip a little bit. And there's nothing more terrifying than having your ascender slip on a fixed line. So go with the Black Diamond Ascender. And then getting up the mountain, we use the ascender. Getting down the mountain, we need to have some way to rappel. And that's going to be done with a basic ATC, which stands for Air Traffic Controller. You feed the rope through it, clip a carabiner through the rope, and it creates enough friction that you can rappel off of. So we carry those on any mountain that we use fixed lines on. And then we also will often ask folks to have a figure 8 as a backup in case you were to drop your ATC. The figure 8 works just as well, but they tend to twist the rope up really bad. So that's why the ATC is preferred. So those are kind of your big high altitude mountaineering things that you're going to need.
Awesome. So a couple, advanced climbing tools for women specifically. First, we've got the Kula cloth. I've got one right here with a really pretty pattern on it. Basically, this is toilet paper that you can reuse. It's got a microfiber antibacterial side to it that you wipe with. It dries out really quickly and it, does its best to not let bacteria grow with all the technology they have in it. You can kind of clip it up and either put it in your pocket or hang it off your pack. Do be aware of the things in the air or stuff in the air around you if you are hanging it off your pack. If you're going to get splattered with yak poop, you don't really want your reusable toilet paper here to get yak poop on it. So I like to put it in my pocket or in my pack for that reasons. But Kula cloth is great reusable toilet paper for women in the outdoors. On top of that, we have our pee funnels. I've got my nice hot pink pee funnel here. I really like the pee style pee funnels. They come with really cute little cases that you can store them in while you're hiking, so you're not getting urine all over the inside of your backpack or in your pocket. There's a lot of different pee funnels out there. Try a couple, find the one that works best for you. We teamed up with Megan Buchanan earlier this spring, I guess maybe it was winter actually, to talk about some of these specific women considerations when she was climbing Everest with CTSS. And one big point that I took away from her is she was like, practice going to the bathroom in front of people, practice using your pee funnel, because we can have shy bladders. And so sometimes you have to go in front of that rope team. Maybe you're on Denali. And so Megan tells a story about how she was talking with her guide and her guide would just tell the entire rope team, hey, Megan's going to go use the bathroom right over there, just put it out in the open for everybody. Everybody looked away. Megan used the bathroom. She did that a lot to get used to it so that by the time she got to Everest, she was well practiced and ready to use the bathroom wherever she was. Another really cool thing Megan shared with us was she made a slight modification to her down suit. It had kind of a really big rainbow zipper in the butt so you can drop that seat when you're using the bathroom. And she sewed a little handle of ribbon on the front so that when she unzipped it, she pulled it up between her legs, she could clip it to her harness and keep it out of the way as she was using the bathroom frequently. I know Stephanie's got the link to that blog post where we've got photos of all of this and more tips from Megan on, using the bathroom in the outdoors and getting comfortable with it and the products that she likes and use. Megan's climbed the 7 summits with us and she's pretty awesome. So go take a look at that blog post for some more tips and tricks.
Yeah, absolute badass. Totally awesome. Cool, Dani. We love all this extra women specific stuff. I think that really helps. Folks, practice, practice, practice. Don't be embarrassed. I know it's hard. That's why we practice. So we can get that all out there and kind of shake that all out. Well, folks, we're going to be wrapping things up. We do just want to talk about personal items, luxury items, because these are things we all bring. This wonderful picture of all these North Face Duffles. No, we have no sponsorship for any of these products or affiliate. We just really do share products that we like and things like that. So I know there are a couple of items on here. I even snuck on one of my all-time favorite products on there. And let's see, Josh, can you get us started on the sleep system and some of the bladder versus Nalgene items?
Yeah, so obviously you need to be able to stay warm enough at night. Also, having a sleeping bag that's not so constrictive can be nice. So if you're in the market to buy a sleeping bag, obviously the lower the rating that you have, the warmer it's going to be. So on Everest, Vinson, we're going to be using minus 40 degree sleeping bags, whereas on Mount Baker, 20 degrees, 0 degree is probably plenty. But some of them are rather tight. So for me personally, I like to have one that's a little bit roomier. And then also having a good sleeping pad can make all the difference. If you're tossing and turning all night because your sleeping pad is rock hard, that is not all that enjoyable, especially on a long expedition. And then having something that insulates the bottom of your sleeping pad from the snow is really important. So it's actually a 3-part system: a closed cell foam pad, an inflatable sleeping pad, and then your sleeping bag. Take the time, go to a gear store, try all those different combinations out and see what's comfortable. In terms of water bottles or water bladders, we definitely recommend using the large topped Nalgene water bottles or an equivalent. And the reason being, they're much easier to fill up. The hose on a bladder can freeze if it's cold out. And a water bottle, it's easy to replace, especially on a trek to Everest Base Camp. If you lost a water bottle, you can go buy a new one for $2. We want to get used to walking for an hour, walking for an hour and a half, and then drinking water. Do that with your training so that you're used to it when you get to whatever climb you're going to be on. And then I know Stephanie's really excited about the next item on the list here.
I am excited. When I discovered these, like that there were, in fact, compressed wipes, I've seen people various times hiking places, backpacking, mountaineering, and they'll have like face wipes and body wipes and toilet wipes and these wipes, and they'll have like 17 different wipes. And maybe it's more of a lady thing. I'm not sure. But I found these compressed wipes, and they're like the size of like a Minto. And then you just put water in them. If you can use warm water, they're even more enjoyable. But they're just a nice way to keep your load light and not have to bring a bunch of heavy, already pre-wet wipes. You wet them yourselves. Dani, do you use anything like that?
I just use normal baby wipes, but now that you've told me about them, I'm definitely going to bring them on my next trip because they sound awesome.
I love it. I love it. Cool. Awesome. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. But Dani, I think you're a big umbrella rain poncho fan.
I am. I'll tell you a little story, actually. We're on the first or maybe second day of the Everest Base Camp trek, and the heavens open and it starts to rain. And everybody's putting on their Gore-Tex, their hardshell pants, their jacket. And we all look over and there's Josh. And he's got this big poncho that just plops over his head, covers him and his backpack, fully waterproof. It's pretty warm out. So he's also able to have that breathability. And he's trekking in the rain, staying dry. And I think in that moment, all of us were like, oh, we wish we had a poncho too. So let this be your sign to bring a rain poncho and an umbrella. I had my umbrella, with me on that trek. It's great to pop up, hold above you. I've got a little homemade attachment piece so that I can just stick it to the shoulder strap of my backpack, and it just kind of pops above me as I'm hiking in the pouring rain. Any way that you can help keep the rain off of you and keep your stuff dry, whether it's a poncho or umbrella, in combination with the typical rain gear of a rain jacket and pants, is really going to help you and your things stay dry in the long run. Even if you think you don't need a rain poncho or an umbrella, I like to always bring one, especially on Kilimanjaro or Everest Base Camp trek, where it's probably going to rain for a day or two.
I love the umbrella. It also works for sunshine. If you are needing a little break from the sun and you don't have any access to that, it's not too windy. It's a great sun reflector. They do sell ultralight ones naturally. There's ultralight everything. But I think, Dani, you just had a regular umbrella.
Yep, a gas station umbrella. Nothing fancy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Perfect. So luxury items, whoever would like to take that.
I think the second bullet point under the luxury items heading here is really important. Know where you're going and know what you're going to have access to. One example, Everest Base Camp, along the trek and even at base camp, it's fully connected. You can get Wi-Fi or cell service almost the entire way, including at base camp. Whereas in Ecuador, on some of the huts, you might not have access to that. I know that Aconcagua is a little more connected now. People definitely want to stay in touch with people at home and let them know how they're doing. So having a way to communicate with home is great, but in-reach satellite transmitters are a great option as well if you're not trying to just be on the internet the whole time. I also really recommend people not travel in their mountaineering boots. Don't get on your 15-hour flight to Doha in your trekking boots. Bring some flip-flops, bring a comfortable pair of shoes. Don't skimp on your casual town clothes. The last thing you want to do is get done with your expedition and then go back to town and have to shower and put on your dirty mountaineering clothes. So like it says there, just have an understanding of where you're going and what you'll have access to. And then definitely travel comfortably is my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I'll second what you said. Having a nice, sweatshirt and sweatpants or jeans to put on after that shower, after the expedition can be really nice. But thinking about, 1 or 2 luxury items that you might want to bring on the trek with you, using that framework that Josh just laid out, knowing where you're going, what you're getting yourself into, what you'll have access to. On Denali, if you're bringing your Kindle, you want to make sure you've got those books downloaded. There's no internet out there, where on the Everest Base Camp trek, like Josh said, you're pretty well connected. Bringing a small deck of cards can be really fun. Play some cards with your teammates on those down days or things like that.
Perfect. Awesome. So we're going to wrap it up just with a conversation about used gear and budgeting. I want to jump in here because we've had a couple questions about buying gear for the future. And I know we've mentioned this. There are certain items where you can definitely dial this in and think in the future. Your climbing packs, your boots, your sleeping bags, your parkas that you're buying. Those are all good things to consider. Asking somebody like Dani, who might be your program manager, hey, I want to climb Mont Blanc. Hey, I want to climb Aconcagua. And you know that I'm doing Baker this year. You know that I'm starting on Ecuador this year. What would you recommend? Going to our website, pulling the gear list for Everest, pulling the gear list for Aconcagua now and going ahead and looking at it is a great idea to start thinking about the gear you want to buy now for future expeditions as well. And then we do want to be careful with bells and whistles like on our Carabiners. So we want to avoid overbuying bells and whistles on your packs. So just being thoughtful about the things that you're buying for future expeditions and not is really, really helpful. Dani and Josh, anything to add on that note? Because it goes into budgeting as well. On that note of buying for future expeditions, how to navigate that and how to get some good advice with it.
I think everything that you said, Stephanie, I'll just echo. If you're starting on Baker and this is your first mountain and you're like, I want to climb the 7 summits, I want to climb Aconcagua, pulling those gear lists is a great first step, and comparing and saying okay, I need single mountaineering boots for Baker, but triple for Aconcagua. Buying those triple boots and wearing them on Baker can be a great way to get used to them and breaking them in. But also be mindful, if this is your first time mountaineering and you're not totally sure that you're going to like it, renting some of that gear can be a great way to not put down a big investment up front in case you hate it. I hope you don't. I hope you love it and come climb all 7 summits with us. But do be mindful as you're buying stuff for that first expedition that yes, it will work for future expeditions, but also that you don't invest all your money up front and then decide, oh, I don't think mountaineering's for me. So just having that kind of in the back of your mind. I'm always here as your program manager and available to hop on a call and chat through that gear with you. Chat through, okay, I want to climb Everest in 3 years. I'm starting here on Mount Baker. I've got everything in between. We can work together on that to make sure that you're buying the right gear up front. So a year and a half down the road, you're not having to rebuy a bunch of that gear.
Thank you for that, Dani. Okay, so I think we're jumping into this last little slide here. Dani, Facebook, gear swap.
So we have a Facebook page, the Climbing the 7 Summits Gear or Buy, Sell, Swap Facebook page. On there, you can join the group and you can sell gear that you're no longer using. You can buy gear that you're no longer using, and you can swap gear. Right after Everest season is a really great time to look on there. We've got a lot of our Everest climbers who are maybe completing their 7 summits. Maybe they're selling some things that they're no longer going to use. So that's a great place to keep an eye on to get some good deals on gear. Similarly, if you've got some gear and you want to sell it, hop on there and post your boots, post your sleeping bag, post your parkas that you're no longer using, and see if we can't, get those passed along to someone else who can use them. Just as you're thinking about buying used gear is a great way to go. It's a great way to save money and save the planet from buying new things all of the time. But a couple considerations to think about. Things like helmet, harnesses, ropes. I would definitely either know the buyer really well and the history of that equipment and the age of that equipment, or just say, hey, I'm not going to buy those items. Those items, kind of Josh was talking about protecting our vital organs. If you have a harness that you don't know the history of, you don't know how old it is, you don't know where it's lived, you don't want to be hanging off that rope on Denali above 14 camp. You want to be in a harness that you have purchased new and you know its history. Things like sleeping bag, your clothing, your climbing pack, your crampons are all great items to purchase secondhand from the Facebook group, or if you've got like a rental store in your area, I know in Seattle, a bunch of shops at the end of every season, usually they'll sell off some of their older stuff. And that's a great way to get new to you gear and get it tested out there. So be mindful of wear and tear. You don't want the sleeping bag that down is coming out of every pore in it and you can't keep it all in and it's not quite as warm anymore. But that's pretty obvious to see as you're purchasing stuff. Another tip is, lots of companies have holiday sales. We've got Memorial Day coming up here. A lot of companies are running Memorial Day sales. That's a great time to buy certain gear. And I know Josh had brought this up. Depending on your job, it sounds like a lot of people who maybe work for the government are eligible for some pro deals through a company called, is it Expert Voice or Experticity?
I think they changed.
Expert Voice. They changed their name somewhere in there and I can never remember. But Expert Voice and Outdoor Pro Link are great places to check out and see if you can get some deals on gear through your job.
Awesome, Dani. I love that. And I think REI right now is having their 20% off sale for members. And I know that REI also cracked down on a lot of people like buying and returning things. They specifically did not crack down on people who bought like 3 different sizes of puffers or 3 different sizes of mountaineering boots, tried them all on and sent them back. They were very explicit about their return policy as of late, and that they wanted to continue to accommodate for mountaineers like us who are buying a couple different things, trying them on, and then sending back what doesn't work because they want to support that community.
Just one thing, I've had this happen a handful of times over the years, specifically for Everest or Everest Base Camp. People read online that you can buy equipment in Kathmandu very affordably, which is true, but a lot of it's fake. So if you're trying to save a few dollars by buying your whole kit in Kathmandu, spend the money at home. If you can find a deal, do it. Because if you actually buy the authentic stuff in Kathmandu, it's going to be full price. Like they do not do sales on the legitimate equipment. So last thing you want to do is buy a jacket that has North Face, Mountain Hardwear, and Black Diamond logos all on the same jacket because it's not real.
Appreciate that tip. Okay, so my last 2 questions. Dani, do you wear your glasses under your goggles?
I do. Yeah, I've got over the glass goggles that are sized bigger to fit, that's not always the most comfortable thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then any sleeping bag recommendations for stomach sleepers?
That's a great question. In the expedition sleeping bags, like 0 and below, I don't have a great answer for you. 0 and above, you've got a couple options. I know Nemo makes a bag specifically for women's stomach sleepers. Very specific market there. I have one of their bags. Basically, it's just like a wider bag. So you've got room to kind of put those arms out, move around, bring your knees up if you're a side sleeper within the sleeping bag and not having to crunch the whole sleeping bag with you. I don't know how warm they make them. I know mine's at 20°F. Otherwise, Big Agnes makes a stomach sleeping bag and Rappel makes a stomach sleeping sack. None of these are necessarily that warm, and you're probably not going to want to bring them to Everest Base Camp. You'll be quite cold in those bags. But if you're just looking for, backpacking, there's a lot of great options out there.
Yeah, I have a Big Agnes myself for backpacking. I don't love the mummy kind of feel. I'm a mover. I'm not a stomach sleeper, and I absolutely love it as somebody who likes to sometimes curl my legs up. So I am a big fan of that, and it's specifically wide on the bottom. So it's really nice. Awesome. There's lots of info on the screen about how to connect with us. Feel free to take a screenshot of this if you would like. We have our Instagram, our Facebook, our website, and our email. Our Instagram has just been lighting up lately, and our Facebook, as we just wrapped our Himalayan spring season. We had, 58 successful summits on Everest, 6 on Lhotse, 2 American records set by the youngest and oldest woman to summit Everest. And that was Emma and Eva. Absolutely incredible. So proud of them. And then Emma also broke the world record for 7 summit finisher as the youngest woman. So super cool there. So if you head to either of our socials, you'll find out all that info. We also do free consult calls with people that are just interested in maybe setting up their next climb with us or getting started with us. If you have any interest in climbing with us and you're not already in our realm, in our world, Caroline would love to chat with you. She's our co-owner with Mike. She's a wealth of information, and we are always happy to chat and see if it's something you like to work with us. So I put that link in there so you all have it. Oh, I see one more question. Do people wear contacts at 8,000 meters? Is it even safe?
Yeah, it's safe. You just need to make sure that you have a good quality goggle that's going to keep your eyes from getting super cold or dried out. But keeping your contact solution in your down jacket or eye drops, something that you could quickly get in your eyes if they were starting to feel dry. I wouldn't wear hard contacts. Soft contacts are okay.
Great question right there. That's a good one to finish with. Okay, so I'm going to leave the final word with Josh and Dani. So Josh, any final thoughts on gear as we wrap up here?
No, I'm excited to see what folks come up with when we meet you on the trip. So yeah, happy hunting.
I'll second Josh. Happy gear hunting. And remember, ounces make pounds.
All right, folks, I think that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon or evening or maybe morning. But thank you for sticking with us, and we so appreciate that. Look out for our next webinar. We are doing a women-specific webinar coming up in June, and then in July, we're going to be doing a Karsten's Pyramid webinar with Mike Hamill, and that'll be fun. So stay tuned for that. And that is all, folks. And Dani and Josh, thank you both so much. That was awesome. Appreciate it. All right, take care. Bye, guys.